Good morning. We are doing some pen recording, and uh, we'll be making 8 pens in this process. And this is the first blank that I set up to test. I've never cut a pen. Uh, the whole process took 15 hours, so I decided to do this a little different. This is super sped up. It's 20x to condense it down, and I'm going to voice over this. So this first pen blank was just essentially in my mind a test to see if I could even turn a pen. And after I showed it to a friend of mine, he's like, "Hey, I'd like to give 8 of these away as gifts. Can you make 7 more?" And so what I thought was turning into I'm going to learn how to, turned into a project that needs to be uh, presentable in my mind for people. And so this is my first go at pens and 8 pens. And so the main thing with a pen that I learned is that the bore axis for the brass insert is the key. So everything has to be lined up and true for that axis. So you're building the pen from the inside out, if you think of it that way. So every time you make an adjustment or move anything around, you want to make sure that your bore axis remains true. So I use my drill bit and my end mill to make sure that that's happening. You can see we're already a different day now. I've changed shirts. We're cutting down. This is blank 2, I think. Yeah, we've cut 1. We're cutting 2. I've decided to move the camera to a better view for y'all in this one. So I mount the pen, I bore the hole, and then I give it its general basic round shape that then I'm going to transfer to the mandrel, a special pen mandrel you'll see later. My Nova chuck has optional pen vice jaws, so that's what I'm using here. These weren't true pen blanks. I got a small block of wood from one of the local wood supply places here in Arkansas, and it was just a piece that was 4 by 4 and then 2 inches thick. And so I cut that into 8 blanks that were pretty close to the same size. And since they weren't truly square, I optioned to get them on the lathe and get them round and work from them round. If you go to a store and you buy pen blanks, they're going to be truly square in their x-axis and y-axis, and then the z-axis, the length of the total piece where you're putting the drill bit through. That's going to change depending on if you're doing a 1-piece or a 2-piece. And since I only had 8 of these that I could make from that, so all these will be cut from the same cloth in a sense, that they all come from the same piece of wood. I opted to make mini pens. So these mini pens end up being about 4 inches long in total length, and my precision point of the blank needs cut down to just about 2 3/4 in terms of length. So I'm making some marks to do that and accomplish that and get it trimmed down. And I'm still trying to figure out which tools are going to work best to do this process quickly here on the second blank. But there I'm using my cutoff tool to kind of set my mark for this is the end of the pen. I need to get pretty close. Here I've switched to the mill to make sure that the ends are truly square. This is a special pen mill. They're different sizes based on the bore of the pen. Pens that I've seen so far come in either 10 mil inner or 7 mil inner for slimline. Here you see I'm milling it down and getting it true. What I don't know at this point is that I actually need to take the end of the pen inside the diameter of the mill. So I'm going to do this for a lot of them until I get ready to do assembly. I'm going to have to go back and remount each of these and bring them down further. But right now I don't know that because I haven't read that far into the instructions. I'm trying to do batch work and just get all my blanks to the same point at this time. you could see I bring in a blank and compare quickly that I essentially have them more or less the same in length. The overall diameter right now isn't a big concern. I just want to make sure that my pieces are generally the same length and that my two ends are true. That's what I was going for right here. Yeah, and then here I believe I've switched to pin 3. We're going to work through that. There I try my true square mill to see how it handles it. Go back to the small spindle gouge. That little spindle gouge I use is a 3/8 inch spindle gouge. Let's see, end mill again, both ends. Mark with the cutoff wheel again so I know where my true depth is for when I part off this little nugget that I don't need. You know, like I said, they're about 4 inches and I only need 2 3/4. So each one of these has a little cutoff that we've got. Trim that up, end mill again, get it good, check it, golden, switch to the next blank. So, yeah. And again, this is sped up at 20x. So, I mean, that 20-30 seconds that you saw was not that. I'm trying to get this video cut down for us. Yeah. Set my end, get it ready to mill. Happy with that. I start to figure out that I want one end that's going to go in the chuck here on pin 4, and the other end's going to get cut off, and then I make round essentially to that or pretty close to it. Switch to the spindle gouge. The wood that I'm using for all these is Padauk, or African Padauk. I think that's how you say it. It's a very red wood. It's I would call it pretty oily in general. So it's very soft. It's easy to cut. It looks gorgeous once it's stained. I chose it because my friend that asked me to do this, he has an espresso machine that has Padauk handles and a chrome exterior, and so essentially this pen will kind of match his home espresso machine. That was my idea with this, but then it turned into a project for him to be able to give the other pens to his coworkers. So that's what these end up being for. But that's why I chose the pen that I chose and the layout and look. So when we get to the hard wheel, you'll see that it's chrome. So work through this pen. Check that. I think we're on to pin 5. You can see I've switched certs. It's a different day. Make sure all this is good. I use you'll see I'm using the pencil on the drill. I'm not marking the drill. The pencil fits very well into the grooves of the drill to clean it out, the flutes. So I'm just using that to knock off the dust as I bore through the pen. I wish I had a slightly longer drill bit. The drills that I got are not quite long enough to have the flutes go all the way through a 4-inch piece and be exposed on the back side. So I had to go in, pull back out some to relieve the sawdust that was building up inside there, and then make another plunge and do that. And it was about every 1/2 inch or so I'd have to give it relief. It'd fill up the 2 flutes until I got to the end, and then I push out the back. But I had to run my drill pretty far extended, farther than I think a guy would have probably wanted, but knowing that Padauk is in general kind of soft and oily, I felt comfortable that the drill would hold up. I just had to maintain, at least 10 millimeters of bite on the drill. Since it's a 10 millimeter drill bit, you want to grab at least as much depth or as much cross section as you have length, or as much length in the bit as you do cross section is what I was always told as a minimum. But one would have preferred a longer set. Sorry if you can hear my dog in the background. Let's see here. I don't know what I'm talking about right now. I'm talking to the camera about something. Here we go for the next pin. I think I'm discussing that I need to bring down the pins into the right bore width for the mill. I think I figured out that I've got to have them the right size. Yeah, so bringing down the end smaller and smaller. Yeah, and I check it. Yeah, so this is where I realized that each of my blanks have to be inside the mill diameter, and so I've got to bring them all down into the right dimension. I'm just using the mill to check that and get them cut down. So I end up with 3 cylinder shapes. You've got 2 little cylinders and the fat cylinder, and then I bring the mill up and check, and then true mill again. So I can run the mill in and give a slight relief, so I can see on the inside how much I need to bring that down. I'll just bore in a little bit, make a tiny cup end, and then I work the drill or work the piece down until that tiny overhang cup goes away on both ends. So then I know I'm cutting into where the pin is true to. Yeah. These are all pretty close to true length at this point as well. That's the other thing I'm doing is you got to bring the drill in until you just barely touch the brass and get the brass trimmed off. So I mean, it's you really don't want to take like a shaving, the tiniest amount of shaving off the brass, so that the pin ends up the true length. It's truly square. It's a clean cut. It's a nice finish. But work through all these. Getting all 16 ends recut back down. This was nearly a day's work for me when I figured that out. So half a day at least. And by that I mean the time that I spend in the shop. A day of time I spend in the shop in my leisure. Yeah. Again, working through the same process. So I don't want to use the end mill to hold the blank, just because it does have a shank that runs down into the pin that will true up anything that maybe you've made a mistake into the inside of the pin, but it's not it's not a perfectly tight fit inside that brass, and so to put pressure on it could cause that tooth to cut, and I wouldn't want it to cut into the center of the brass in any way. Maybe potentially cause a separation or an issue when somebody goes to put the pen cartridge back in where they would get a snag or anything like that. So that's why I always switched back out to my live center when I actually do the cut. It's meant to, it fits at the end of the brass just right and holds it. I adjust the camera a little farther out so maybe you can see the relief that I'm making. No, I think I moved it a little too far, but I just have the one camera angle, and I've kind of got to work from my phone to monitor the footage, and it's sitting at the end of the lathe, so I really pay attention to how far I had moved it. The camera is Insta360. It's mounted on top of my headstock in these shots off a little magnetic arm that I got. Here I think I might be able to sit down to finish cutting these down to their true round to make them a good cylinder, and after a few minutes I decide that's not going to work. So I stand back up. And you can tell I'm a big guy, so standing for a long time is not ideal. Here we're finally shaping pin 1 into its true shape. I made sure to keep each set of pins, like its blank is with its set of pin, and that its brass, like I kept all the kits separate all the way through. So from here on out, we do each pin to finish. So you can see 2 shiny silver bushings at either end of the pin. The goal is to bring the pin down at either end to match that shape. And then you can have a little bit of a custom shape in the middle. You can see this pin is kind of teardrop shaped or balloon shaped slightly to bring it into shape. This is the first pin, obviously. Sanding here with 120 grit, I believe. So it's the first grit that I used on this pen. I didn't use 80 grit. Then the second sandpaper is going to be 240. Cleaning with isopropyl alcohol in between each pen. This is going to be our 400. Then this should be 600. I finished each up to 600. So I may have used 80 grit on this pen, I don't remember. But either way, they got sanded up to 600. Here I have some micron paper, so we want a really smooth finish on these pens. That's what I was going for, because I'm gonna use CA glue for the finish, super glue. And so I decided I'm gonna put 8 coats of super glue on each pen to build up something to polish. So that's what I'm going through here. I've got an accelerator to spray in between each deal, wait about 20 seconds and spray. And I use the way that I fold the cloth to know that I've done 8 passes, because I've got 4 parts I can do on this side, and then I can flip it inside out and switch. Here the pink cloth was 3 micron, the blue cloth was 2 micron, and the white cloth was 1 micron. And then I got to take these bushings off, and I didn't know how much they would wear down, so each bushing I use to here's a good look at the pen. Yeah. Each bushing set I bought for each pen so I could throw them away because I didn't know how well. So with the first pen, I fully assembled it, all its guts and stuff, before I pressed it together. And the clicker on it ended up very stiff, and that was a mistake. I should not have done that. But I've worked on the pen. It's starting to click a little better. It's unfortunate, but it should end up okay. I mean, it's a functional pen. you'll see at the end of the video. Here we cut pin 2. Each pin I get a little better on, I think, as I go, with the shape of the pin. Also on the first pin, because of the balloon shape or teardrop shape that I gave it, had to bend the shirt clip out a little further, just to make it be able to fit. And on it, I bent it a little too far so it doesn't quite touch the pin like one would want, but it will still clip a shirt pretty good. So that's what we deal with there. Here we go through pin 2. Yep, and that was through our 600 grit, and here comes the super glue. Get all set up for that. I'll drop the super glue bottle for a second. If for some reason something happened with one of the super glue passes in here, where like I had a piece of dust get stuck in it or some accidental lint come off, I cleaned it up and I kind of redid that pass. So they all got at least 8 passes. Here's the 3 micron, and check it out. Polish it, clean it up. Yeah, I had a little spot on this one, and redo that. And then 2 micron, 1 micron. So I'm doing some touch-up work here before I really set in. So 3. Yep, there it is. It's pin 2. It's a little better. Clicks good. Clippy's right. It's almost exactly the same shape as pin 1. It's a little thinner. Pin 3. Same thing again. Batch work. You can see why I wanted to run this through pretty quickly for y'all, but do a voiceover. I appreciate it if you're still here listening. Thank you for that. I know that these may not be the most interesting videos in the world, but I appreciate you watching. Here we go. Sanding, clean in between. Sand. Some of these I cleaned between cutting forwards and backwards. So all the sandings I did on each pin, my lathe will turn in reverse. So I sand forward, I sand in reverse. And in general, between each of those, I would clean the blank as well. So that's what you see in between when you see a blue cloth come in that gets turned red, and then my hand. That's me cleaning it and kind of getting it dry. Here we go with the super glue. You can see this pen is already much thinner than the first 2. Starting to get in the groove and figure out what I'm doing with these pens. What fits good with the clippy on the back, so I have to do less bending. Already to 3 micron, 2 micron, a brief clean. After the super glue and the finish, I just did the lathe in forward. I mean, this is just a polish. So there's the press for pin 3, and I check to make sure that the end cap can unscrew when I pull it off the lathe. First couple stuck pretty good. Maybe there was a little bit of super glue over the tip, pressed together, got hot when it pressed, kind of re-glued. So I had to barely touch them with a set of pliers to get them free. But the rest of these I don't have that issue with. Pin 4 should be. Sorry, I don't have a lot to say at this point. It's very redundant. Thank you for bearing with me through all these. There I'm using my roundover scraper. A little different feel. Trying to make sure I get the tool marks out of these so I get a better finish on them. Pin 4, I think, is almost elliptical. I tried to keep the bubble towards the back third of all the pins. This one's probably like 40%, but it's a pretty slim pin, so it has kind of an elliptical feel towards its presence or appearance, presentation. Clean up all the dust there briefly. Get ready to apply the super glue. We work through the super glue. We're working through our, yeah, so this one had a little spot at the tip that I needed to work out. So that's why you saw me go to the green micron for a minute. The green micron is supposed to be 600 grit, which if you remember is the same as I polished these down to, so I can take it all the way back down if I need to and rebuild back up that layer. But I worked that to see if I could get most of an imperfection out that was up near the tip. And then here I got to the point where I'm happy with it. A lot of the corrections I was not able to 100% fix, but I got them to where I was satisfied with them. I would not say any of the pens are 100% perfect. They're all unique. They all have some little flaw in them. But none of the two are exactly the same. But pin 4 pressed really good. Clean takeoff. It's a good looking pen. Here we are getting set up for pen number 5. Must be sharpening my tool. I think we're on pen 5. Same thing again, get it down. So I've got a little, like I said, I've got 3 different cylinder sizes, the 2 end cylinders and then the main cylinder. And so I just try and cut that into a taper that I like off because I've got a drop shoulder essentially. And so I try and feather that drop shoulder on each pen into the taper that I want it to have at the end. And work that down. Get it the shape I want. Here we go, 80 grit. Forwards and backwards. Get it good and clean. Still with the 80 grit. Trying to make sure I get rid of the tool marks. Here we're now 120. Nice and clean. 240. Clean it up. 400. Oh, maybe that was 600. Maybe I started with the 120 grit. Yeah, would have to be because now I'm at the super glue stage. The last sandpaper was always 600. I kept track of them, kept them on the workbench to the side so that you know which one is which. My air conditioner just kicked on, so if you can hear that, I apologize. Hopefully it's not too loud in the background. Here we're at 3 micron, checking it out, 2 micron, clean it off, 1 micron, clean it off, happy pen. Here comes the press. So those little plastic caps have magnets in them. And I ended up having to super glue the magnets into each end because I didn't realize that the first time it was doubled up in one end and not in the other. But once I figured that out, I got them working correctly. That allows me to use the tailstock as a press, so I don't have to have a pen vise. The first pen was so stiff that I could not press it with those. I actually had to get out a 4-inch vise and get it to close with an actual vise on my workbench, which barely fit because, mind you, these are 4-inch pens, and then I have those 2 spacers. So I had to run my vise all the way out, and then barely got it to go together. It was quite a thing. But yeah, I was pushing back my headstock, and I had it locked down as hard as I could go, that I felt comfortable with. Could not get that first pen to set like we wanted to. Now this is pen 6. It has kind of a bulb shape at its long end, and then it goes much more straight. Yeah, you can tell that. You'll see it at the end. But I definitely recognize this one. I do like this shape, but it is the most unique shaped of all the pens. I did a much swifter drop off and run out to the front than it did on all the other pens. So it has like a bulb at the back kind of appearance. Good in the hand, nice to hold the pen though. I like it. But it is definitely on the unique side of the shape of the pens in terms of, was it teardrop shaped or different. This one's definitely the most different. And that must be my 600, and then yeah, we're cleaning up the dust, so we'll do super glue, try to cut down on getting any fragments in with the super glue. And then we'll be done with that. There comes our microns. Happy pen. So here for pen 7, you can see I've changed shirts. This is a different day. So for pen 7 and 8, I had bought a small fan to help keep the camera cool because I had some overheating issues. And so I don't know if that changed something in the super glue, but on pin 7 and 8, I get kind of a spiral imperfection into the super glue that's nearly is perceivable to the eye from the way I laid the glue out. And I don't know if the fan was causing that, just the difference in temperature and humidity in the shop, or what, but I end up trying to work these 2 pens a little more to get that imperceivable swirl out. Ends up with a barber shop spiral down the pen that one normally would not want to have. And so you'll see me do some extra sanding on these last 2 pens. I don't know what caused it. They feel smooth and fine to the touch, but like I said, if you look at it in the clear coat, you can see this. If you look really hard, you can see this spiral that runs down the pen. And so I noticed it. Whoever receives this pen probably never will notice it until they hear this voiceover, if they ever do. Um, so, yeah. What do we got going here? I got something out of order, guys. Somehow one of my segments jumped around on me. I don't know what this is. I'm gonna have to mark this section here. We're gonna leave it. I did enough to whatever. Not perfect. This is early on. I don't know how these would have got out of order. All these pin clips were numbered. I'm sorry. We're going to leave it though, guys. This is what we got. I've already put a lot of time into editing this. We know what's happening here. I don't know which pin blank this is. I don't know how this got out of order. Let's see. That's segment 14 for some reason. And the segment we're about to run into is segment 44. So that would have been like the first or second pin. That's super early on. All right, here we are back to pin. This must be pin 8 finishing. Goodness gracious. Sorry, guys. I really don't know how that jumped out of order. But it did. Super glue buildup for pin 8. Yeah, there I'm calling out that I got the spiral. I'm trying to get rid of it. Really trying to make pin 8 like this is the last one, you know. We want it to be good, but I also could not get the spiral out of pin 8. I tried. I didn't want to take the finish all the way off and start over. My only guess is that the little fan was just drying the spiral just a little bit too much before I hit it with the cloth in that brief second that it was there before I touched it with the cloth to spread it out, that we got a minor little bit of setup. Super glue so fast to set up even without accelerator. Yeah, so here we go, working it down. So really happy with there. That's pin 8. What is this nonsense? Goodness gracious, I have more stuff out of space. It's so easy to move the clips around when you're trying to just drag the slider to go backwards. Sometimes you'll actually just grab a clip and DaVinci will move it. I'm using DaVinci Resolve 20. Which pen is it? I don't know where we're at, guys. I'm lost. I apologize, but it is what it is. So, this must be the cutting down of like pin 8 or something like that. I could look and see what clip we're on. Yeah, let's see what clip we're on here. Now this is segment 48, so this is probably, yeah, this has to be pin 8. I don't know how these got out of order, guys. Oh, goodness gracious. It is what it is. Not my finest recording work. I really don't know how I got these segments out of order in the queue. But we have somehow mixed that up. If you made it this far and you caught the errors, Leave a comment down below what segment numbers I got out of order. It was 14 and 48. Goodness gracious. And we're putting super glue on again. I'm nearly out of segments in. No, I'll go into the 50s in my segment order. So maybe this is pin 7's finishing. Now I've lost track, guys. This is pin 7 based on, it has to be based on my clip numbering that I'm seeing. So I have 53 clips that I put together for this video. So this must be pin 7. Or the last part was pin 7 and this is pin 8 and we're getting ready to switch into exit feed stuff. I don't have a studio or anything like that, so if you could hear my dog walking, that's what that was. I'm just in the living room, guys. A normal person. All right, yeah, so here we go. I go through, now I'm talking through how we finish assembling a pen after we have everything. So that's the bushing kit that I talk about that I bought, one of each for each pen. And some guys will reuse these, but as you sand them, they get smaller and smaller. And so if a guy were to batch a bunch of pens off the same bushings, the last pen is going to be significantly thinner than it needs to be with the other. And those bushings are the exact same size as the caps, so that's how far you have to turn the two ends of the pen down to. So that's why I bought a set for each one, the intent that they would just be throwaways. But could a guy do a couple pens on each one? Probably so. Probably no problem to do 2 or 3, maybe even 4 pens on one. I don't know. But I wasn't sure. Like I said, this was my first one. And then I all of a sudden got told, hey, can you do 8 pens? So I had stuff to do. I had bought stuff to do 3. And so I just ordered the stuff to do 5 and was like, okay, let's get through this. So here, because I'm recording live, of course I struggle to open this tiny Ziploc bag. And we get out the pen cap set up. Sorry, the pen cap. The plastic piece can unthread. It has all the little actuator stuff built into it. One could take all that out to put the pen together if they needed to and then put it back in. But I honestly didn't know how, if I did that, I'd ever get that screwed in there. So I left it in on all these. And after pin 1, this is how I put all of them together. I put that brass in one end and the brass in the other. And here I check to see how much I have to bend the little clippy. And so just imperceptibly bend it, maybe 1 millimeter, just enough that it's pulled off that clip, and check it again and see if I like the fit. So we want it to hold tension on the pen so that it'll bite onto whatever you hand it, whether that's a piece of paper, a shirt, a pocket protector, whatever. And so we want to have a good fit there. So I get that set. Here's the pen tip cap that I opened. Even tinier Ziploc baggie. I really appreciate that the pen company I got this from puts all these in different things. That way in shipping, they don't get scuffed around. Here I'm pointing out the front bushing has a tiny offset inside for which end goes into the pen. So that little bit steps down and gives you a seat to make sure it fits inside the brass of the pen so you can get it square. And then the pen tip threads into that. And so here I'm showing how that works and how you line it up. Camera didn't pick it up too well, but I think you could see it. And then I screw that on. And this is what I end up taking to the lathe to put together. It just barely sits in there. It's you can't even press that in with your fingers really to get it to stay. Like you'll always be able to pull that apart. Maybe if I was like Brian Shaw, I could press that down in there, but he probably crushed the whole pen if he could even hold it. So, yeah, we'll be back in a couple seconds after this, and I'll press it together. Show here that the retaining spring goes there, and then there's a little cap click. The clicker cap goes on that to secure that pin. So the rear pin seems universal. The ink cartridge goes down in there, gets retained by the cap. It's all pretty easy, but yeah. So we'll should be taking this to the lathe any second to press it. Here I'm going to show my little cappies that I use. That they each have a magnet in them, and I had to super glue the magnets down in there because they would come out into the lathe, or they'd both end up in one side or whatever. So I super glued them so that can't happen, because I did not want to have to fish them out of the lathe again when that happened one time. They're just sitting on the inside of the headstock. I'm like, this is a disaster. I cannot have a magnet right there. I was able to get it out with my push-out rod that your lathe will come with if you get one. I don't know if I said I have a Laguna 1836. It's a pretty good lathe. I turned all these pins in the bowl spindle, or in the bowl speed settings. So I never got them up above much above 11 or 1200 RPM. The lathe will only go to about 1300 in the speed I had it in, which for me is plenty fine. You can see these guys got really smooth. I don't know that I needed to switch the gearing to go faster. I pretty much turn bowls. Those turn at the slower speed, so the motor has more torque. Here I've gone and pressed it together. We're doing assembly, so just like you would expect. So you can buy refills for these, so this can be a lifelong owned pen for whoever has this until they lose it or give it away. That's just a mini pen ink refill. I'm sure they come in different colors. These are black. I didn't get asked what color I wanted, the pens just come with black ink. So I put the spring in. It does not ever seem to appear that there's a particular way the spring goes, but on them, if I started to twist and it felt like it had some weird bite to the twist or was trying to kick funny, I'd just flip that spring around and it seemed to fix it. So maybe it's just because of the way it spirals. I don't know. But I tried to, when perceivable, put the thicker end of the pen down that had more coils at the bottom, but they seemed universal to me. I could not recognize a difference. And again, here I mark each pen bag so I know which pen was which, because I kept them all the same the whole way through. So that brass came in that pack from the pen manufacturer for the hardware kit. And that's the kit that we got from Penn State. Here we have a sit down. You may have seen the short for this. I tried to make this, I pulled the short from this at the end, I think. But we've got our pens all laid out. We go through each pen. Pen 1. Chunky. Okay clicking now. Not great. Would like it to have been better. Wish I would have paid better attention to what I was doing when I did that. That's my fault. Pen 2. Good clicks. Pin 4. Pin 5. Pin 6. My little finger's creeping up into the camera and I don't realize it, and then I realized it. Pin 7. And pin 8. Thanks for watching.